horrible names, I take it.
Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Betting Show. Adam, it is the divisional round. We are here to go through all your betting needs for it. Yet again, there's not been any Thursday game on. There's no college game on to talk about. I suppose we could open with, yesterday I did a college show and I did talk about the championship game, which is on Monday night. Adam, any thoughts on it? It's Ohio State versus Notre Dame. Ohio State are the 8-point favorites. Any thoughts or feelings on it at all?
You're probably going to win.
We being Ohio State,
Well, I kind of figured that was what you meant, given the fact that I imagine you've been shockingly biased every single week on the college show about how amazing Ohio State are. Not really a lot of thoughts. You seem to have a very good offense, pretty decent defense. Notre Dame have a very good defense. Not sure about the offense.
Good at running the ball.
Yeah, good at running the ball. Got a couple of decent running backs, and Riley Leonard likes to run the ball, obviously. But yeah, I think overall, probably the better team is Ohio State. So I'd be surprised if they didn't win it.
Yeah, I think if you want to have a bet on it, I would lean towards betting prop bets for Ohio. I think they are going to throw the ball a bit. So I think any prop bets that have got receptions or yardage for all three of Smith, Carnell Tate, and Emeka Egbuka, I think would be good. And you banging in some rushing ones for Judkins and Henderson. I think you probably get some good odds and likely to come through as well.
And Will Howard's looked decent, hasn't he? He hasn't looked too bad, especially in the second half. Second half of the season, he's definitely seems to have picked up. So yeah, he definitely seems quite up for throwing the ball. And so I think they're, like you say, they're probably the bets that are worth looking at.
Yeah, it'd be worth noting that obviously we've got the draft shows coming up that we will be doing. And I think Will Howard might make one of those lists maybe for the top 10 quarterbacks. So I think he is a good prospect to take a look at when it comes to the top 10 prospects. So yeah, that'd be interesting to talk to you about him. But we're not here for that. We're here for the divisional games playoffs. That's what we're here for. So let's get them on. As we know, we did an F-Tag 6 last week, so it'll be an F-Tag 4 this week. So the playoffs gives you something different. I wish I could. You asked me, you challenged me, and said, "Can I get a 5?"
How did it go? How did the F-Tag
State in there? You would have been 5.
How was it? Because I know the Chargers obviously lost, so that was the first one down, and then I believe you stupidly came out and put +10 for the Steelers. Which went horrifically wrong. So
Commanders, we're 3-3.
Okay. So, yeah, pretty bad.
50%. That's lower than our average for the season. I think we're around 60% for the season. So, yeah, not great.
No, I mean the F-Tag 6 doesn't have a good ring to it either. So we'll forget about that. Yeah.
That's where we went wrong from the start. Calling that the F-Tag 6. But we'll start up with this one. Adam, we'll start from the top because we're going through all of the games. The Texans at the Chiefs. I have taken the +8.5 on the Texans. The Chiefs have only beat teams by more than 8.5, I think 4 times this year. I think Saints, Browns, Steelers, 49ers. 2 of them were early doors in the season. And then right at the back end of the season as well. They don't often have a big spread like this. I think we've talked about during the season that Pat Mahomes at any more than 3.5 point favorite, his percentages drop down in terms of betting. So at 8.5, I think maybe if it was at 6.5, maybe 7, you might think about it. But 8.5 over that touchdown. I think it's quite hard. I think the weather's going to be really, really cold. I can see this being maybe a bit leaning on the run for both teams. Not a high-scoring game. So I think it's going to be close, and Chiefs obviously win, but that 8.5 just scares me a little bit. So I'm taking the +8 for the Texans.
Yeah, I kind of agree. It's a really horrible one, this game. It is really difficult because the Chiefs have just not been that explosive offense that they have been in the past. So it does make you feel like everything that you've said kind of makes sense, and that would be the way that it goes. My concern with it is that not only do I think the Chiefs' offense will be a bit more limited compared to previous years, I don't really think this Texans offense is very good, and I just don't think they're going to do much. And that, in fairness to the Texans, the reason that has happened is because of injuries. They've lost Tank Dell, they've lost Stephon Diggs. It's two of your main 3 wide receivers. You're basically going with Nico Collins and not a lot else, really. I mean, you've got Dalton Schultz, I suppose. You could argue we'll probably see a bit of the ball, but I'm not really confident on anyone else on that team. Yes, you would expect the run game and Joe Mixon to probably try and do as much as possible. Chiefs have been very, very good against the run all season, and I think that you're probably going to see that happen again here. As you say, the Chiefs to win, I think, is a fairly reasonable thing to come out and say. I think the majority of people will probably opt for the Chiefs to win this game, and actually they're not the biggest favourites of the week, but they're not far off. I don't know. It's a horrible one. It really is. It's actually, I would argue, probably the worst one of all 4. This one, I feel more confident with pretty much every other game, but this one is horrible just because of the way the Chiefs' offense has been. I think I could see this going the Chiefs, and I think they could win it by 10, which is what kind of scares me a little bit about it.
Yeah, with spreads like this and being forced into pick one or the other, it does, you're trying to weigh up every option. Yes, this season has heavily been a lot of favorites. I think that's why we've done so well through the season, because I've been betting on the minus a lot rather than the underdogs. And the favorites have, well, we saw that in the previous round. Favorites won quite comfortably, didn't they? And then some of them, the heavy favorites anyway. So it's a tough one this season, I think, to evaluate. I heard someone saying that they believe that favorites have won a lot more this year in terms of betting because of the new kickoff rule, with the fact that the better quarterbacks are now starting on the 30 and not having to go far to kick field goals. So that might be a reason why favorites are beating underdogs a bit more this year. So it might be something interesting to look into.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite possible. I mean, as you know, obviously, if you are starting closer, you do have less distance to go in order to score. So, I mean, that does make a lot of sense that would be the case.
Especially when kickers are kicking automatic from sort of
from 50 plus. 50 that's plus, the other thing, isn't it? Yeah. So it is quite an easy way to get points on the board. Yeah, it's a really difficult this one. It's just like, it's probably the least exciting game of the 4 as well from a viewership point of view. It's the lowest over under. Not by a lot, actually, which is surprising to me. I'm surprised that the Eagles and Rams over under is as low as it is. I thought that would be a bit higher. But 41.5, it's not the most exciting game of the lot. And it's difficult not to back the Chiefs in this particular
we never go against them.
and because of that, you just sort of feel like even the 8.5, I don't know if the Texans have got enough in order to keep going. I could see like a field goal at the end to push it over. I could see a touchdown at the end to push it over, and it just feels like a really horrible line. So I would probably go Chiefs minus 8.5.
Tough one. A bit of a 50-50 split there between us. But we move on to the next game. It is the Commanders at the Lions. This is the largest spread of all of them at 9.5. I have actually taken the -9.5 on the Lions. Just feel like they've been, it's back indoors, back at home. They've rested. There's a few players back. They can put points up against anybody quite comfortably, easily, quickly, in various different ways. It's not always with throw-in. They can lean on that run game as well. Is Montgomery back for this one as well? Is there? Yep. Yeah. So they get Monty back to complement. I think Reynolds and has done quite well filling in as well. So they'll be in the mix. So Commanders, we said this last week, they've been in a lot of very close games where they've only just got over the line against some teams that haven't been particularly wow like the Lions have been. So I just think if the Lions do get off to a quick start and they do start putting points up, might get away from the Commanders quite quickly, and they might struggle to claw that back and leave themselves too big of a gap in the fourth quarter to get it back. So I have taken the plus at the -9.5 on the Lions, despite that being quite a big line. So I'm praying for a 10+ win here.
Yeah, I agree with this one. I think that the Lions -9.5 is the way forward. I think this is the point, isn't it? This is the one step too far for the Commanders, I think, and they've had an amazing season. I think they will. I think they'll put points up. I think they'll do quite well here. But it does have shootout written all over it, this game, and I think that although the Commanders have looked very strong defensively against the pass, they have really struggled against the run throughout the whole season. And you've got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery back. And so I think that because of that, it's just going to be too much for them. I do see the Lions pass game doing okay as well. I just think that they're going to obviously go for the run game first. And I don't think they're going to have to do much more than that in order to get over the line for most of it. It feels like, as I said, the Commanders have kind of done incredibly well. This is you're going up against a team who are not Super Bowl favourites, but are pretty close and are certainly favourites for the NFC Championship of it. And having to go away in that stadium with that crowd, I think is going to be very, very difficult to not only be within 9.5, but to get anywhere close to winning this game. So I think it's just going to be incredibly tough for them. And I think they'll probably come out of it doing okay, but everyone will probably come out and go, oh, well, they had a good run, but this was their point. And so because of that, I just think it is just too much. The Lions are just too powerful offensively. You can score against the Lions. I think the Commanders will, but I just don't think they're going to be able to keep it close enough in order to be able to cover this spread at 9.5. It is a very big line. As you said, it's not something that we would normally be looking at. I think we would normally be going, that's way too much, and you would avoid like the plague on that one. But it's just, given what's there, it feels like you're going to be back in this powerful offense, which also the other thing with the Lions, of course, that we have seen, they don't stop. That's the other thing. Even when they are in a position where they are ahead and they don't need to do anything, they will continue. And the idea that they would suddenly change that sort of mantra now just feels a little bit strange and a bit unlikely to happen. So I think that's just the attitude that Dan Campbell's gone with and will continue to go with. So yeah, -9.5, not great, but we'll have it.
Yeah. Wow, it's not uncommon for the Lions to be winning by more than 10 this season. Exactly. So it's not like we're asking for something that hasn't already been done, and they've been doing it against some good opposition as well. So confident they can. More than I've got to pick one, so that's the one I'm going for. I am confident they can do it. The next game is the Rams at the Eagles. The Rams with a great performance in the preview in the wild card round. I think that's the best their offense has played for a little while now. They seem to get everything going. We know how good their front seven is. We know how good they are up front in on that defense. So that's not the problem. But I think we might be a little bit sort of blinded by how well they did play in that game, and maybe it's not going to be replicated again against the Eagles. We said last week that going against the Vikings was the perfect matchup for them, and their areas of weakness for the Vikings complemented the Rams to win that one. This is not the case with the Eagles. They're good up front. They're good in the secondary, and if they want to start using the passing game a bit more on offense, I think they could do, despite the fact we haven't seen it as much as we thought we might. And the secondary of the Rams is what lets them down slightly. It's been good, but it is an area of weakness for them. So I don't want to be blinded by how well they played and be like, yeah, this is going to be close. I do think the Eagles are a lot better team and have shown that throughout the season. So I've taken the -6 on the Eagles for this one. Kyron Williams is also a bit banged up, isn't he, for the Rams? So he's going to be carrying an injury through this, which is going to hinder them quite a bit. It's going to just be Puka. It looks like it, sort of main threat. There hasn't been loads of others joining in lots that we can be confident on. So Eagles for me for this one at -6. I like it. It's within a touchdown, which is what I really, really like. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I think that I think, as you say, you're probably pretty much spot on with most of it. It's that the Rams, as we said last week, it was very much a favourable matchup going against the Vikings, and it did work out pretty well for them. I think when I know the Vikings aren't in this matchup. When it comes to the Vikings, I have been saying a lot this season that it's kind of one-score games that have gotten through, and eventually they're going to get found out. And I kind of felt like they did when they played the Lions in week 18, and then that just continued into the playoffs. So I feel like, as you say, it looked like the Rams played incredibly well against them. And I think they probably did play pretty well against them, in fairness. But there is a limit, I feel, with the Rams, and it wasn't quite as good as maybe what it looked like. And in the same respect, I didn't think the Eagles, when they played the Packers, looked very good at all. I thought they really struggled offensively. They were going up against a defense that has been solid but not fantastic all season, and I think that there was times when they struggled, and maybe with a mixture of the two, I kind of feel like it sort of brought it into this sort of number of 6, whereas for personally, I would argue that the Eagles here, I feel like, have got, or should be, a spread roughly around the same as the previous 2 games that we've spoken about. So I feel like the Eagles can win both ways. They can win against the run, they can win against the pass, because the Rams secondary is pretty poor. So they can do that, and I think that they will be able to get round them. The Rams, as you say, Kyron, he is a little bit banged up, but from what I've read, it's like he's going to play, he's fine to play, sort of thing. And he'll probably do okay, but he's going up against this Eagles defense that is just very, very strong against both the run and the pass. And so I think, like you say, it does lean onto Puka. Cooper Kupp has been pretty non-existent over the back end of this season. So you're kind of looking at the likes of Tyler Higbee and Demarcus Robinson, and it just isn't, it's not the same quality as like Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert, and even like someone like Jahan Dotson, who hasn't really featured a great deal, but popped up with a touchdown last week, and is still, I mean, that first year at Washington, it did really well. So it feels like there's just more talent on this Eagles team than what there is on the Rams team, and that the Rams are just not there yet. They're just not in that position to really go for it yet, which, you know, is a bit of a weird thing to say when you've got Matthew Stafford as your quarterback and he's given his age and stuff like that. But I just feel like they're not quite there. The Eagles are in a much better place. I think just the whole team and the depth as well that we saw. We saw a couple of guys go out against the Packers injured, and the depth that came in just completely covered the gaps, and it wasn't a problem. So -6, you're within the touchdown. I think it's a fairly good bet to go for, and I'd be surprised if the Eagles didn't win it by 6.
Yeah, I suppose in terms of mindset as well going into this game, like you said, the Eagles didn't play very well against the Packers, yet won. So they might see that game as like a loss. I know obviously it's not in the playoffs, but they might see that as a bit of a loss, a bit of a negative. Like we won, yes, but we didn't play well. So they're scheming and training harder and pushing more, and the coach can get more out of them because he can be a bit harder on them because they didn't play well, and they become a lot more prepared. Whereas the Rams obviously won comfortably, won easy, on a bit of a high, might come in a little bit more naive. I think that might play into a bit of a factor when you're kind of looking at little areas that you can sort of pull something from. And I think that might weigh in the Eagles' favor as well, again, at home as well. So I think that might play a factor, and they'll want to come out and prove that that game was not how they play, and they can win without playing badly. So that might be in there.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think you're right. I mean, didn't we all kind of have Eagles Lions anyway as the NFC Championship game? So, you know.
Well, the last game, probably the most exciting of the lot, it's the MVP Bowl, as we probably like to call it, with Josh Allen against Lamar, both vying for that spot of MVP. This line has changed a lot. I think it opened, I messaged you about it, but I have found out the Ravens opened as the underdog. Then the professionals hammered it. Then it flipped the other way. I think it even moved to 1.5, maybe even to 2, +2 for the Bills, but then it's been hammered back the other way. So this has kind of found a bit of a happy medium of people going, you know, we know this is going to be a close game. Whoever's the underdog, we'll put a load of money on. So a bit of a weird one. At home for the Bills, playing some great football. Ravens coming in on a bit of a high now because they had a bit of a slow start. I think this is a really hard one to call, but I really like the Bills, and they're at home, and I've favored them going into this. They're going to get to the Super Bowl. So I'm leaning towards the +1 for me on the Bills. I think they're now healthy. I think they're they've got all their offensive weapons back. I think that's going to complement well, and they're not just going to have to lean on James Cook and Josh Allen only. I think that, you know, Kincaid can be used, and Coleman, and Shaqiri's been quite consistent all year. So I'm quite happy that's where they're at. I know their defense has struggled against the run a little bit, and Ravens obviously are going to run the ball, but Zay Flowers hasn't trained or practiced all week. I think he's supposedly going to play, but it's going to be suit up and play, which I'm not sure is ideal. And then outside of that, I know they have got a little bit out of their B+ wide receivers that they've got, but this is the Bills, and it's going to be a lot harder than what they've previously played. So I'm going to stick with the Bills at +1 in this one.
Yeah, this is horrible beyond belief. It really is to come out with any sort of real strong opinion when it comes to these two teams. One thing that I noticed is, so the Ravens are number 1 against the run. They've been great all year. They don't give up rushing touchdowns or yards. Obviously, the Bills' main attack is Josh Allen and James Cook. So it does kind of feel like, to a certain degree, it's taking away their main threat. When it comes to the Bills against the run, they actually are 12th when it comes to giving up rushing yards. So they're more of a sort of like middle of the pack kind of team. Obviously, you've got Derrick Henry and you've got Lamar Jackson here. So it does kind of feel like that is where the weakness is. Now, if you look at the stats for the passing yards as well, it makes for a pretty poor reading on both sides. However, if you actually look at the last 3 games, the Ravens are currently 5th when it comes to giving up passing yards, and the Bills are 3rd when it comes to giving up passing yards. So you've basically got the only real area that I would say is weakness, and it's not even much of that, to be honest, is the Bills' run defense. So that's kind of like, if you look at it purely from a stats point of view, that's kind of what you're dealing with. You've also got to factor in the thing that it is absolutely hammering it down with snow at the moment, and it's they have pretty much guaranteed that it's going to be a snow game, and it's going to be snowing tomorrow, and it will be snowing on Sunday night evening when when the game's on. So you kind of have that to factor in as well. However, your mindset with that is the Bills would be more favoured, but then you sort of think, but actually the Ravens' main attack is Derrick Henry, who's been in Tennessee for a lot and has been in a lot of snow games, and it's like he's more than capable of dealing with that, and it's just incredibly difficult to come out with any sort of opinion. And you kind of the only thing that I can be really confident when it comes to opinion is that it's bloody annoying that it's not the AFC Championship game, or even the Super Bowl, if that could possibly have happened. So it's very difficult. One thing I would say, the over-under is at 51.5. I think it's going to be under.
Yeah, with the weather,
certainly with the it feels like the run game is what's going to be favoured the most. It feels like with that weather, you're going to want to go under on that. So I feel like that's where my main opinion would be, on the under for that. I think they're both really, really good teams. I feel like I want to opt for the Ravens, just purely because I think the one thing that they have really struggled, and what has stopped them getting over the line, is having that support there for Lamar Jackson. And I just feel like Derrick Henry is that, and that's why he's been brought in. That's the whole point. And so I think because of that, I'm going to go for the Ravens at -1, but you're splitting hairs. You really are.
Yeah, Ravens and Lamar Jackson have struggled in the playoffs. This could be the game. I've always in my head thought, if it's going to be a cold game and a snow game, the quarterback that you want is Josh Allen. He loves it in the snow and thrives in that cold weather. Whereas I think Lamar might struggle a little bit if he has to throw. I think the cold might affect him a bit more than Josh Allen. So that might play into it a little bit. But as you said, I think the spread proves that no one can call this one, and it's a bit of a 50-50. And as I've said with the bettors, it's flipping all the time because they're just hammering whoever the underdog is, and because they think that's where they get the most money from it. So yeah, it's definitely a tough one to call, and as we said, the most exciting one. So I think that's going to get probably the most watched game of the 4.
Yeah.
Adam, is there any touchdown scorers you like in any of these games? Any odds you've seen that are leaping out at you?
So the only one that I I've got a couple of doubles that I've done, one for Saturday, one for Sunday, and there's some bet builder stuff that you've probably done and that we can look at. But I kind of feel like there's only really one that is of a really big odds, and I was a little surprised that he was at this price, given the fact that he scored last week, against a fairly decent Packers defense, and that's for the Eagles. And Jahan Dotson is 9-1, and that just to me felt like a very surprising, odds to be that big in going up against the Rams defense that the secondary is pretty poor. And it just kind of felt like I don't quite, maybe they would argue that it was just a one-off fluke, but I just sort of feel like as someone he'll probably be out there at times, and so at 9-1, is he still 9-1?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah. So at 9-1, I just kind of felt like that was someone who has got a good chance of getting in. And it's that time of year, isn't it, where basically the playbook gets emptied and it's almost like you have to come up with any little thing. AJ Brown is going to not be marked out the game, but he's going to be sort of like, as he was a little bit against the Packers. That was kind of what happened. So I imagine the Rams will try their best to do that. So yeah, I think
he look out onto the field with him.
Yeah. Well, maybe that'll help him do a bit of reading, motivational speaking, and all that sort of will help him. But yeah, I mean, at 9-1, I just felt like he was a really good prize. I've got a couple of others that are over 2-1, but they're in the doubles. So
okay. Well, do you want to hit us with your doubles first? Then I've got a couple of I've got a fourfold of touchdown scorers and a bet builder. So
okay, so I've got two doubles, which I also have as a fourfold if you want to go down that route. But so Saturday for the Texans Chiefs game, Xavier Worthy. The one thing that I kind of noticed in the last couple of games of the season, it felt like Worthy was getting more involved. There was actually plays that were being made for him. So at 2-1, I thought that he was a good bet to be looking at. For the Commanders against the Lions, I have gone for Diami Brown at 9-4. Another guy who's kind of been involved in the last couple of weeks. Scored a couple of touchdowns as well. Looks quite good. Going up against the Lions passing defense that's currently 29th. Has really struggled all season long, to be honest. A little bit surprising. I felt like they were going to be better, certainly with the likes of Terrion Arnold coming in, but it hasn't really equated to anything at the moment. So I think that Diami Brown at 9-4 is quite a nice one. So that double is 8.75-1. On Sunday, for the Rams-Eagles games, I've gone for Puka at 7-5. I know that he doesn't score every week, but I just kind of feel like, as you said, he is the main guy there. Feels like he's got a good chance of getting in, although he is going up against this Eagles team. I struggled with the Eagles because you could go for Dotson, but it is kind of a bit of a dart throw, to be honest, rather than anything else and what you'd want to put into this. And then the odds of all the other Eagles guys were quite low. So it was difficult to kind of get a real, get decent odds on that. So yeah, Puka at 7-5. And then in the Ravens-Bills game, I've gone for Khalil Shakir at 2-1. Just I like the price of Shakir at 2-1. I think that's good odds for him. I was tempted to go for Bateman because I know, but they're saying with Zay Flowers, he's not going to practice. He didn't practice today. They reckon he's going to be a game time decision. So I mean, Bateman could be a really good bet at 11-8, and he could not be if Flowers is playing. So
well, even if Flowers is playing, he's always that deep.
He will be there, but it's just that obviously I feel if Flowers is playing, it's going to be Flowers and Andrews first before Bateman, and that's the only issue with that. So Shakir at the odds of 2-1 I quite like. So Puka and Shakir was 6.2-1. Chuck all four of them in together.
Big odds
69.2-1.
Yeah, I went for a bit of a safer fourfold and tried to go for players that I thought have been heavily involved a lot more recent. So I've gone Joe Mixon. I know they're good against the run, but they're going to be using him, and there's always a chance that a running back's going to get him, regardless of how good your defense is at stopping the run game. And at 11-8, I think he's going to be down there being used. Jameson Williams at 11-8 as well. Always, I think when you're looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown so much, he's always going to be available and open at some point in the game, which we've seen throughout the season. I've taken Devonta Smith, who's been the wide receiver for the Eagles of recent, because AJ Brown some reason isn't getting the targets, and he's 2-1, which I thought was absolute great odds for him. And then I finished that off with James Cook as well Again, I know the Ravens are good against the run, but he's going to be there in the passing game and the running game and all the trick plays or anything, run play options and everything down there with Allen near the goal line at 10 to 11. So those four together are 31.3 to 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad, is it? Like you say, Mixon's going to be involved a lot. Jameson Williams does seem to be getting involved quite a bit all the time, so he'll be a decent one. Devon Smith, that price has gone out. He was a lot shorter than that. He was about 6 to 4, I think, when I looked at him. So that price has gone out. And then James Cook, I mean, he's had what is it, 17 touchdowns this seaon? Yeah, I mean, it's like crazy how many he's had. So yeah, I mean, they've all got very good chances of getting in, haven't they? And at 31 to 1, it's a pretty decent price. It's just the one. Well, probably the one that is sort of the scariest of the lot is probably Joe Mixon, just because he is going up against that run defense. But yeah, I think they've all got good chances.
And then my other bet, I was looking at them. I was going to do something similar to what we did last week, and thought let's get the ball rolling with a nice bet builder on the Texans Chiefs and put it together. But I was like, no, do you know what? I'm keeping away from that game for building, because after you put Nico Collins in the bet and maybe Travis Kelce, you're clutching at straws, I think, after that. Who you want to put in it? So I went, I'm leaving it. And I've decided to do a few players from each game and a bet builder plus. And I haven't gone too crazy on what they've got to do. So the first game, I've just mentioned the two of them. I took Nico Collins and 50 plus yards, and I took Kelce at 30 plus yards. I feel like the ball's got to go to Nico Collins a lot, and Kelce, I'm not asking him to do too much there. That's 3 first downs at 30 yards, and I've kind of left that game there at that. I've then taken Puka at 60 yards or more, Devonta Smith 40 yards or more, Cooper Kupp 30 yards, and AJ Brown 30 yards. So a few more options in that game, but I feel like the ball might get thrown a bit more in this fixture. And I've not asked a lot of the secondary players at 30 yards from Kupp and 30 yards from Brown. You'd think that was a given, wouldn't you, for that? I thought you had some thoughts.
Sorry, are you claiming AJ Brown as a secondary player now?
Well, you know what I mean? I feel like the ball goes to Devonta Smith more than it does AJ Brown recently.
It's just, yeah. I mean, well, the problem is you say that you're not asking for much, and you're not. But neither of them would have got 30 yards last week in Kupp or Brown. So it's this is the problem, isn't it?
Got to throw the ball to them. And then I think this is a bit of it could be a decent one. I've in the Lions Commanders game, I've gone Amon-Ra St. Brown 60 plus, Terry McLaurin 60 plus, and then Jameson Williams 40 plus. So the key players that are in that game. And then in the final game, I've gone Shakir 40 plus, Bateman 30 plus, and Mark Andrews 30 plus. So I've factored in that this might be a run heavy game and haven't gone too wild at all on the receiving yards in there. And this bet comes out at just under 33 to 1. So nice odds on it. And I personally don't think I've asked for anything crazy in there or too much in each game. It's not as if I've got 6-7 players that I usually have when I have these. So I think it's got a good chance.
Yeah, I think that's probably what I would say is I think rather than doing individual bet builders for each game, I think that is probably the way forward in this particular week, that you want to be looking at sort of small bits from certain games. I don't think anyone is expecting the Texans and the Chiefs to be a particularly exciting, high-scoring affair. It's going to be quite defensive-minded. So you want to kind of be looking at sort of like smaller yardage, smaller reception numbers as well. I think if you want to go down that route, then I think that is probably the way that you could look at it. If there are games that you feel like you want to kind of go for it a little bit more, have slightly higher receptions or slightly higher yardage, then it is going to be the Lions Commanders game and the Bills Ravens game. I think that they are the two that you can see from the over unders that is expected. So it makes sense for you to maybe go slightly higher on them. And because you have got 4 games and you can bring little bits from each one, it does mean that you can add it up and sort of get it to a point where you are actually getting decent odds. And like you said, what was it, to just over 30 to 1?
Just under 33 to 1.
Right. Okay. So, you know, I mean, it's really good odds. And like you say, when you look at them, you're not asking for too much, really, when you think about it, and where a lot of these players have been throughout the whole season. But it's just worth noting that, said this last week, and will continue to with the playoffs, it's just all about defense. It always has been. And the way that teams play, it just seems to be completely different to how they play in the regular season. And I can only assume it's because the pressure's off sometimes in the regular season, because you've either put yourself in a position where you've already qualified, or you know that you're just so much better than the team that you're going against. It doesn't matter if you mess it up, because you're just going to score the next time. So it does feel like it is very much defense is king.
Yeah, no one wants to get behind early, do they? No one wants to take as many risks.
No.
So it's very conservative football and lean on the defense, which, you know, just sway the betting slightly in these terms. But have you got any
I know this goes slightly against the betting and doing this show, but I mean, when you actually think about, you know, the games that we had last week, we were in the chat, in our group chat, we were all coming out going, this has not been good. Like
underwhelming was the word I used.
Yeah, exactly. These games were not great at all. And basically, it wasn't until the Commanders and the Bucks played that there was any sort of excitement or interest. It was like, it really was quite slow and quite defensive minded, and everyone was just a little bit scared to do anything, and that was really tough. And to a certain degree, I think you're going to see a little bit of that again this week, where there's just the defense will take over. It might be slightly better because you've got the Lions involved in it, and so they will go for it. And obviously having the Bills Ravens just kind of makes you feel like they will attack. But I do wonder if we are looking at another week like that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see. I will be watching every single game and every single minute. I won't want to miss any of this. But we will be back again next week with some more odds for you. But till then, keep with the franchise tag and see you again very soon.